Nicholas, welcome.
Hey,
Bienvenue. Bruchim habayim. I also know some Hebrew. I know that from your hearing you speak many times, you spent a lot of time in Israel and have a lovely partner who is Israeli. And so without being assumptive, I'm just sharing that. I don't know. I could share my Italian. Bienvenuto, prego,
ah, buongiorno, buongiorno.
buongiorno. Welcome. I am just so delighted and happy to be with you right now.
Thank you. Great to be here, Julie. Thank you.
Thank you. So I'm just gonna, I feel like I know you because I've been listening to you. I've been reading your book. I had the great privilege of being introduced to you through the power of presence through Coaches Rising.
Right.
I'm a coach. I've been a coach for many years, and I saw the introduction, the invitation to join the Coaches Rising. I think it was 8 weeks or I don't remember, 3 months course. And I saw David White, I saw Thomas Hubel, I saw John Prendergast, and then I was looking at the other names and the other offerings. And I read your name and I just was drawn in. I mean, I'm always drawn into presence. It's something that I deeply value and honor and bring to the work that I do. And it's just who I am and what I feel is truly important. And I heard the speakers and it was just very, very drawn in. Of course, I got so much out of it. And then you came on the screen. It's like, wow, Nicholas Janni, who is this man? And I just felt this deep resonance with what you share and who you are and what you emote. And your name is the one that has stayed with me until this moment. And I just am very grateful for who you are and the work that you do. And yeah, thank you for this introduction. I will let you speak, believe me, but I'm just gonna a few more preemptive statements is
Thank you for all you're saying.
yeah, no, I feel like in hearing you legitimize what I often undermine in myself and what feels like this lifelong journey and probably lifetimes of connecting to energy, high sensitivity, intuition, access to or available to other intelligence that is in the consciousness, to being a good listener. People telling me, I'd say, what's good about me? Oh, you're such a good listener. I was like, oh, come on, just something more exciting, like, oh, that's easy. And so I've come to value, right, this. And so in what you are saying in Leader as Healer, what you talk about, what you write about helps me legitimize, which is, a lifelong process, the work that I do and that I believe in. And so for that, I say thank you again.
Thank you, Julie. You're welcome.
You might just be saying you're welcome for an hour. My listeners know me. Some who obviously will be listening for the first time, they'll get to know me. But as I said, I'm a coach. I coach executives. I coach parents. I coach artists and creatives. I've done energy work and energy healing. I do intuitive readings. I cross various spectrums. There's lots of bridging and intersecting. And I host an experience called Dance Your Intuition, connecting to the wisdom of your body. And, have really been committed to my own deep work for many years, and it goes on. So I'm a mother raising two boys who are 11 and 8. And there's so much to say, so many places to go. Can you tell us who you are for those people who are lucky and fortunate to get to meet you for the first time?
Who I am.
Who are you, Nicholas?
So, I was born and raised in London. I had a mother who was clinically manic depressive and a father who was Holocaust traumatized. So, and I was an only child, so that wasn't the most stable of beginnings. And then around age 16, I had basically a very strong spiritual awakening. For very frivolous reasons. I went with a school friend to visit his grandmother, who lived in a Tibetan Buddhist monastery in Scotland. You know, we were school kids in London. I was sex, drugs, and rock and roll were my gig. But it sounded like, why not?
Right.
So up we went, and, you know, it was exotic and difficult to meditate. But basically, at a certain moment while we were there, someone gave me a classic Buddhist text. And I sat reading it, and it was like, I know this. It was like literally a curtain, another world open.
Wow.
And it's very interesting because one thing I love, and I'm probably the same for you, is that in working so much in the way I do, it's like it gets deeper and deeper. I'm learning more and more all the time. And I see now that in many ways, everything I'm doing now is a direct connection to that experience.
Wow.
So then I mean, just to finish the story, if you like, because my father was a famous film producer, I would always go into the arts. But I went into theatre because you can't follow a father into his profession. And I discovered just before I started studying some very key figures who were basically saying theatre can be a very profound exploration. So that was my 20 years, next 20 years, really exploring what happened when the actor would completely open. Like every cell in their body would come alive, and you would feel them in a deep kind of channeling, like they were totally receptive. They weren't doing it. Something was doing them. So my curiosity, and I had my own company and I taught in drama schools, was actually to see how that could be more intentional. Because every artist knows that as a kind of gift. But actually, how could we really practice that? So that was 20 years of work and some amazing work. And then, not in a planned way, I started getting into working with executives. I had never thought that would happen. And I mean, that's the whole story. But and a small group of us started developing a methodology where we use Shakespeare's stories as model, as case studies. And we got a lot of support from a big business school. And we started to get really good at it. It was a big process to move. And then we got more and more in demand. So in 2001, 3 of us created a consultancy and pretty much quit the theatre. And I will say, I think, even if it's boasting, that we were way ahead of the game at this. It was 2001. We were doing like, what, Shakespeare? But we were so good at it. And we were doing 5-day retreats with senior teams. And each day we would take one act of the story. And basically it was, you know, this is what's happening in the story. How is this happening in you? Because they're such powerful stories. You know, it was great work. And we grew and grew, and we took on many people and everything. But there was a point about 5 years ago where I needed to leave. And I did. And I stopped using Shakespeare. I focused purely on presence in the deeper sense of the word. And then about, maybe it was 6 years ago, actually. No, maybe even more, 6 or 7. And then about 3 years ago, this phrase dropped in one day, leader as healer. And I started paying attention to it and talking to a few people and had a lot of resonance. And basically, it was like a next step in my work, in the presence work. And then a very dear colleague and big supporter of mine, Michael Watkins, said, you have to write a book, which is not very natural for me. So I wrote a book, and you have the book, and there it is. And actually, in many ways, the effect of the book has been on me and my kind of standing in the world has been more than I could have ever imagined. Fascinating, energetically as well.
Do you want to speak to that a little bit?
Well, I find myself in a place now, and obviously I've done so much inner work and still do. And I believe, by the way, that fundamental development has to go on two levels, two streams. One is the kind of meditative mindfulness, body work, everything that opens higher consciousness. But this is the trauma work. This is the deep emotional wounding, personal, transgenerational, and collective. And this is often ignored, particularly in corporate work. So I hold, no, we do both these. And I would say that I think partly as a result of the book, but also my own natural process, I stand clearer and stronger in the work than at any other time, with no compromise. I'm working with one of the world's largest law firms. Leader is healer. So you imagine those two together. It's not a natural fit. But we've done 6 months work. I've done 5 retreats. We've done 240 one-to-one sessions, my team and I. And apparently it's having a big impact on the firm.
I have no doubt.
And that's what I mean by that I stand in a very, very strong place. In the middle of what I call a culture of absence. I think we're paying the price now for so much disconnection in every way, disconnected from the body, disconnected from our emotions, disconnected from our right brain intuition, and disconnected from this deeper kind of unified consciousness that is the higher levels of meditation. So my work stands for that urgently needs correction, all of it. And often the emotional part is one of the biggest gateways, because we have so much exclusion of emotions, so much, I put forward the proposition that nothing needs healing, nothing needs fixing, nothing needs transforming. Everything that's happening inside us needs meeting and feeling. And that's what generates profound movement. Because basically my work is body work and energy work. But I obviously use a lot of language because it has to be wrapped. But in the retreats we do, it's very somatic and it's very emotional. When I do 2-day programs with senior leaders, by day 2, the tears start flowing. And that's beautiful. And it's a big opening. It's a big, big opening when that happens. And then the higher levels naturally come online because the whole nervous system relaxes. So I don't have to fight my fear. I don't have to fight that I'm sad. No, I can feel it. So it's a lot about making it safe and giving permission and being uncompromising. The other thing I would say, and I'll pause, another way I define my work is we have to break the narrative. Almost everyone is in a constant narrative about life, about themselves. And that narrative is disconnected from embodied experience. Constant narrative. I feel a bit of fear because, no, stop. Because if you continue that sentence, you're going to go away from the feeling. You're going to go into an explanation of the emotion. That's narrative. So I'm constantly coming back to what's happening now. Even if you feel totally disassociated, okay, that's fine. Let's be intimate with that. We don't need to change that. If we really fully embrace, then this movement happens naturally. And when I teach coaching, that's a radical proposition. Because everyone is taught, we have to get somewhere, we have to. And I'm like the opposite, that no, we actually have to be fully here. And teams as well. Teams are always trying to get somewhere because it's too difficult to meet what's in the room here. Can we just meet what's in the room? Layers of emotion, layers of energy fields. Okay, I pause.
Wow. And then for you to be able to have the capacity to hold that.
Yeah, that I've always had a strong holding capacity. I don't know why, but I always have. And that just kind of naturally gets deeper.
I wonder if it has something to do with the guitar, the oud, and the djembe. Is that a djembe behind you? Djembe.
Yeah, I have quite a high level of skill on the djembe. I studied 6 months in Africa. In Africa. And 4 years I'm learning the oud.
Wow.
Such an astonishing instrument.
Amazing.
Difficult. Oi, so difficult.
My husband has all of those instruments as well.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. He's in film and music. So
Beautiful.
Yeah. Touched to see them and always to hear from you and your experience. There's so many things that I want to pull on that you shared. Like I have this, dog-eared and underlined, and I guess I want to start or go back to this idea of presence, because in the coaching work that I do, I also mentor coaches, and I also am an educator for those who are looking to get their coaching credential. And of course, so I go through the competencies that are designated by the ICF, the International Coaching Federation, and one of them is coaching presence. And this is something that is a cornerstone of coaching. And it is so vast and so wide and so deep. And when I heard you speak to presence and the words that you described presence, the words that you used to describe presence, to me just like went to every layer that could be reached. And I just want to share those words. You say presence, and of course, please elaborate. I am here and I am available. And you like, I am really here, and I'm in my emotional body. This is from the book and also from what I've heard. I'm in my emotional body is open. My intuitive body is open. My heart is open. And so I'm receiving. And then you also said at another point, I have space for you in me.
Exactly.
And that was, powerful.
Yeah. And that's why it was interesting when you said at the beginning that, people say you're a good listener. Well, that's huge because actually very, very few people are good listeners. Because real listening means I feel you. I receive you. I feel you. I hear your words, but it's much, much more than that. And I think that happens very rarely in our culture. It's quite common when I work with executives that after a certain moment, they come and they say, wow, Nicholas, I'm noticing in the office or at this conference, no one is really listening to anyone. That's a wake up, because before they were in that. And the work is like that.
Yeah.
And I think it's like, I say it's like, we're walking around like that, our shoulders up around our ears, and then we have an amazing massage, and then that happens. But it's only then that I realize, oh, wow, I'm walking around like that. So the work has that wake up, because we're in a coma. We're in a kind of fog. So much interaction happens in this non-connected way. And it's normalized. That's the problem. It's normalized until there's like a wake up.
There was a moment, I don't remember where I heard it from. I just feel like I've been listening to you in various capacities, from the Coach Rising webinars to some other podcasts. And I think you were talking about meetings, like because obviously you're bringing this work to executives and meetings.
Yeah.
And there was something that I really resonated with, whether it's, I'm a recipient, like I'm a participant on a webinar, or, I'm a facilitator as well. So space and holding that space is very important to me. And I'm sensitive to when it's not being held. And I'm also sensitive to when it is. And you said something about, how this work shows up for leaders. Leader as healer will have a moment of silence or 5 minutes of silence before the meetings start. And maybe you could speak to that, but there was something that just made me chuckle, but deeply, deep internally, because blah, blah, blah. All the meetings, people just come in and blah, blah, blah. They're on their phones. Nobody's looking. it's like minutes and minutes and like bureaucracy and red tape and whatever else is happening, and nothing gets done, nothing gets said. But can you share how this changes when you step into the arena?
Well, first of all,
hope?
I want to give an example of, because every so often I sit in on a meeting because it's just, I happen to be there to do my work and whatever. So I sat in on a very senior team meeting about a month ago. And halfway through, somebody started a rant. I don't agree with this. And he went on for about 5 minutes. And I was like, what's going on with this guy? What's happening inside? Mm-hmm. And then someone else said, yeah, but, and they had like a 15-minute, conflict that was utterly pointless. Mm-hmm. And afterwards, I asked one of the heads of the team about the first guy, what's going on with him? And he said, well, he heard yesterday that his sister-in-law has terminal cancer. So this is a perfect example of how dysfunctional we are around emotion. Mm-hmm. Instead of him being able to show up and say, listen, everyone, I'm feeling really upset. You just need to know that I'm really upset. Instead of that, this acting out starts. And then because that's normalized, so you're in a 20-minute waste of time. And by the way, the rest of the group, half of them are on their phone. Mm-hmm. And that's high performance, seriously. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's how crazy. And I don't think that's far from unusual. Mm. So yes, of course, it's often after I've worked 2 or 3 days with a team, they naturally start meetings with some silence, which in the corporate world is unusual, although it's becoming more common now. Mm. And of course, they then have a much more connected meeting. There's much less blah, blah, blah. Because another part of the work is to see how imprecise we are with language. There's so much blah, blah, blah and so little of it has real energy and real meaning. Mm. I'm sure often in coaching, you say, just a minute, you use that word, what do you actually mean? Mm. And then the person starts explaining and they say, no, that wasn't the right word. Yeah, but that's how we talk a lot of the time. Mm-hmm. And it just goes on. Mm-hmm. And then we have these dialogues where we're collaborating in the fog, mm-hmm. because no one is saying, just a moment, what is actually happening here? Mm. So, yes, teams tend to go through a lot of change when I work with a team, because also in part of the process, we do a lot of emotional work. So they start to see each other be very vulnerable. And that's huge. Mm. That changes a lot. Mm-hmm. They feel very connected to each other in a different way after that. And they know each other better. Mm-hmm. It's suddenly, wow, I see the human being is here. Mm. So it's all kind of part of the process. Yeah.
From what I've heard, as well as how to keep people in the emotional realm.
I do.
When they start thinking, no, we're going to stop talking, right?
One of my special, I mean, it's not so special, but it's one of my strong.
It's needed.
And all my team know how to do that as well. Yeah. Actually, we've, in these 200 plus sessions we've done for the law firm, we've been initiating a completely new way of coaching, where we call it matrix coaching. And the sessions are 30 minutes only. And people get a whole text beforehand explaining that you will have 2 minutes only to present your issue. And we're going to time it. And then we stop you after 2 minutes. Mm. The rest of the 25 minutes we're working deeply with what's happening inside you.
Wow.
And we have been blown away
Wow.
by how deep we go. It breaks all the rules of you can't do that instead. Yeah. Some of the deepest sessions I've done were done in 20 minutes, and we've touched trauma in
I
that.
believe you. Wow.
So we're fascinated. It's like we feel like we're being taught something here.
Wow.
It's of our time.
Yeah.
And we describe, when we meet as a team, actually my team are coming here this weekend from England.
Oh, nice.
It's very interesting how we're experiencing the work. This really deep love.
Mm.
I had
Wow.
this morning with a woman, because she wrote me afterwards, from the subcontinent. I won't say where from, but it was a deep session about her calling. Quite a mature, very mature woman, but she was. So she just wrote me, Nicholas, thank you for the wonderful session today. I just stayed with my thoughts, emotions, and feelings for the rest of the day, and boom, a miracle happened.
Wow.
Someone called her and got her into exactly what she'd been looking for.
Wow.
It's magic.
Mm. Again, I'm going to thank you, because I feel like, again, I use the word legitimize, and it's true.
Why you use that? Yeah, I understand.
Yeah. I would, ever since I was young, I was fascinated by the world beyond what I could see, but also very practical,
okay,
very in my body, but maybe not in touch with those frozen parts. That started a little later, but reading books on intuition and psychic experiences, like in the closet, and I did some training around my intuition with a teacher in the United States, and I would hide the books that I was reading. This is like how old was before my children? So my late 20s, and studied intuition and started doing intuitive readings, and sheepishly sharing that I was doing that. And I know I'm speaking on my podcast, and it's something that I always talk about, and still there's this sense of I can't share that, or this is too out there. And when you talk about that, we become available to more solutions. We become available to this other intelligence. I had Helene Wabe on my podcast. She works at the Institute of Noetic Sciences, and she's a scientist, and she's also a channeler, or comes from a lineage of channeling. So we talked about the science of channeling and what happens when we are available. And here you are talking to me about this, talking to us, this availability of accessing. And when I do intuitive readings with people, they're not as common as my coaching, but I drop right into this availability. Okay. Not prophecy. It's what's available here right now, beyond what I'm tuning into on an everyday basis. So just want to thank you again for speaking this language, writing this book, and doing it in organizations and with executives.
Well, let's take this deeper for a moment.
Okay.
Because you're opening, in what you're saying, there's so much. So, first of all, a more general point. The way I see it, we are, I think, in the last stages, and a very toxic stage of patriarchy.
Mm.
My sense is that within that, there is very little place for deep, powerful, feminine wisdom.
Mm.
It's shamed, it's dismissed. I get very angry when I hear corporate men speak about women as too emotional, and I get really angry. I speak this, by the way, to groups. So we're in a time where that has to stop. Mm. And within that, then, the availability, this I also learned very much from my last great spiritual teacher, Thomas Hubel, that the more present we become, the more available we become, reality becomes much more transparent, and all kinds of information comes to us. Just naturally, because as he said, it's not just him actually, because I'm working a lot with Bob Anson now, the founder of the Leadership Circle, and he's deeply into cutting edge physics, which is also speaking the same thing, that we are in a multidimensional information field, except that normally we hardly perceive any of that. That the more available we become, the more embodied we become, the more of our own shadow work we do, trauma work we do. There's many, 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 many layers of information just start to come more naturally. Fascinating. I mean, reality becomes very, very... And our normal culture is very far away from that. Our schools don't teach that. Our schools start prioritizing the left brain very early on.
Yeah.
And part of it is the I would say the deep feminine that's been excellent. And sometimes within that anger and rage that needs to come out sometimes. That needs to be seen and felt and honored.
I couldn't agree more with that.
For men, it's often more the deep tears and fears that need to come out. In my experience, and often enough with women, it needs to be permission for real anger, which is very powerful energy.
Yeah. Taking a moment there.
Yeah.
Thank you for speaking to that. It's here now. I'm pointing to my chest for those who are not watching this, but I just feel I was in talk therapy for many years, starting at 18, and then years later, I mean, that was what started my yearning to feel. You know, how can I regain my access to feeling, and opening up to this world of, you know, this heightened sensitivity, and that had been shut down. And then I walked into the office of my current therapist, Madonna Marr, who is a body psychotherapist, where I understood what you talk about, which is those frozen emotions, the lower self, the shadow. And that's when you said anger, that's where I went. It's thank goodness that I've had an outlet to welcome the anger and the softness, and so, yeah, that's all I had to say right there. But, you know, when I do meet with executives, or I stand in front of the patriarchy, let's just say, there is this delegitimizing, because here I am showing up, you know, or Western culture, whatever you want to call it. We can add all of it, like the colonial mentality, oppressive systems. And that's why I thank you again for this permission, right? This permission in the sense of not that you're granting it to me, but that you're doing what needs to be done to sort of unveil and to allow, because
it's about what I'm standing for.
Right.
Those are words I've started using more and more in the Huron purpose. Asking somebody, asking a leader, asking an organization, what do you really stand for? And what do you really stand against? Those are very fundamentally important questions. So I stand for everything I've just been saying.
Yeah. And we feel it. I feel it. Which is something that you talk about too, in terms of this embodiment piece.
Right.
Of this, it's not, I've heard you talk about emotion. It's not positive emotion or negative emotion. Is it alive? Is there aliveness?
There are emotions. There is sadness in all its shades. There are fears inside all of us. There is anger, and there is happiness and joy. They're all equally important. They're all life flow.
Mm.
And in the suppression of them, we lose a lot of our life energy, and therefore a lot of our intelligence. Because I think at the core of life, there is pure intelligence.
Mm.
That's why when someone does a bit of real emotion work, often, first of all, their body comes more online.
Mm.
They literally start, wow, I feel my legs more now. And then it's very common that all kinds of new ideas start coming.
Mm.
Real insights. Sure, because our whole system unfreezes.
Mm-hmm. What have you noticed that is changing for you as this book is emerging and has emerged in the world? For you personally, or I mean professionally as well, but just in general?
I think that I feel clearer and stronger than ever in what I stand for and what I stand against. And I have a stronger and stronger capacity to not be sidetracked. You may not like what I'm saying, but I'm not going to change what I'm saying. I may try and say it in a way it'll be easier for you to hear, but I'm not compromising what I'm saying.
Mm. Yeah, I've heard you say, I don't use that word. Ego, I don't use that word. Or positive emotion, not for that one either. You know,
I think there's so many ways, Julie, that we slip away.
Right.
So many ways that all of us, and the work is really to become more and more attentive to that and support each other. You know, like I have my support and I have a triad and we meet and we work with each other and we call each other, no. What are you really feeling now? What are you really feeling?
Mm.
Because we all learned to protect ourselves. We had to reduce the intensity of our emotions. It's what we had to do. So it's a forever work to restore ourselves forever. I'm doing certain kind of personal shadow work more nakedly than ever, actually. You know, which for me is about how I receive, because I'm very, very good at giving. But actually receiving is a whole other...
It's a big one.
I'm really, really working with that at the moment. Which
is obviously the right timing with your book being out in the world, right? There is no accident there.
Maybe so, yeah.
Can I read a little bit from your book?
Please. Yeah.
It might be more interesting for the listeners to hear you read it, but
I have a copy here, but you read it. Come
on. Page 17. The leader as healer sees the world, its problems and potential solutions in very different ways than the leader as executor. The healer can analyze and strategize every bit as well as the executor, but knows what it means to connect with themselves and others, to integrate being and doing, proactivity and receptivity, rationality and intuition. Leader as healer understands and embodies the essence of coherent presence. I'm here and I'm available.
Oh, it's so nice to hear you read it.
Beautiful words.
That's lovely. I haven't heard anyone read the book.
No? I have more. I have a selection. I'm probably not going to like read them all, but maybe just another one. Yeah, there's so many beautiful illustrations in the book.
Yes. Yeah, that was a process. When my publisher first said we want to put pictures in, I was like, no, come on, that's not serious. Really?
Wow.
And then, no, it'll enhance.
Wow. So
I found the pictures and I chose the text, and now I really like that.
Beautiful. I love them. They're just...
I saw someone in my home pick up the book And they said, wow, it really slows you down when you look at a picture. So I thought, yeah, that's.
Can I show one?
Sure.
This one is beside the beautiful words that you shared before. Hurts are passed down through the generations until someone is ready to feel them.
That's my favorite picture.
Is it?
Yeah. Took me ages to find that picture. Yeah.
Wow. I mean, it just takes you to the depths.
Right.
It took me there. It takes me there.
And that's part of like what I was saying about the reality becoming more transparent, because you're working with someone and you suddenly feel, okay, what you're feeling now is not only yours.
Mm.
And you start to ask about that, and they, this my female line had carried this. And there's something about then we feel that. So it's always, I think, very important to try and know what energy is here. Sometimes it's someone says, no, I feel very sad right now, and I'm feeling, there's a 4-year-old here. This is not just a sadness from now. And then we start to realize, this goes back. I've been carrying this for a long time. And sometimes it has the transgenerational and sometimes the collective as well. Like I think when I've seen a woman really access anger, it naturally has a collective frequency as well. It has a very personal frequency and a rightful collective frequency. I'm sometimes working with people of color. I've learned a lot through working with 2 African American chief executives and getting really down to the collective trauma layer. And there's still, we're swimming in it. And we don't realize.
And what a gift that you have obviously this experience internally, but also professionally to ask these questions, to know, to sense, where is this coming from?
Yeah, I think that's a beautiful skill for us to develop.
Yeah.
It's not even a skill because it comes from just being more naturally.
And I've heard you use this metaphor. It's like when you're inviting people into an experience of meditation or inner and outer attention, awareness of attention, it's like taking the elevator down.
Yes.
That's so powerful.
Yeah, that's how it often feels with the emotional layers. And so we start with what you're feeling now, and then we go down to the childhood layer. Now we go down to the lineage. Maybe there's the layer of collective as well. It feels like we're going down. We have to go very slow.
Yeah.
Very, very slow. And just pay attention. Just pay attention. That's the greatest tool we have. To keep noticing, not thinking. Keep noticing what's happening.
Yeah. It's beautiful. I'm flipping through your pages, passing through some other beautiful pictures.
I'm ready to hear some more.
Yeah, okay. I better choose the right one. There's one that you talked about evolutionary leadership, which reminded me of a conversation that I was privileged to have with the evolutionary thinker herself, Barbara Marx Hubbard.
Ooh,
she was on my podcast, obviously before she passed, and she talked about evolutionary leaders and being having this access to what's emerging, and being attuned and this empathic and creative sense of self, and for oneself, but for the collective. And this paragraph reminded me of that. It's the return from exile is the chapter, and you talk about many things, but I have this noted. In the preceding pages, I've attempted to outline a theoretical and practical path to the kind of evolutionary leadership I believe is now essential across all domains, the personal, organizational, and societal. It is a path of restoration through which we strive to reintegrate previously exiled aspects of our nature, physical, emotional, and transpersonal. On this pathway, the brilliance and sophistication of the thinking mind takes its rightful place alongside the sensing and feeling mind, together creating a much larger, more holistic intelligence.
Good. Wow.
Good words.
They ring well when they're spoken out loud.
More good words.
Thank you so much.
And then I'm just going to read this last. And then I was wondering if we have time and you feel up for it, though I'm trying to maximize the time we have together, maybe to take us through that beautiful experience of inner and outer attention.
Okay.
I'm putting you on the spot. So of course you
No,
could say no. I know you're clear with your boundaries. You're right. Like what's for you, it's
that's
not.
okay. That's
Okay.
Absolutely.
I feel like it's a wonderful tool that people can access and use. This is in Reconnecting to Purpose, page 144. The leader as healer understands that purpose is lifeblood, and they are willing to ask two central questions. Maybe I should turn it over to you to ask those questions.
Yeah, I think they're beautiful questions. So the first one is, what is the work that is mine to do? I think this is very, very important. Otherwise, we can so easily get into what I could do, what I should do, what I'm not doing. No, but to really allow oneself to drop more and more deeply into what's really mine to do. Who am I? What are my gifts? What do I love? Etc. And then I think of the second one as a kind of deeper level, which is, what is it that is being asked of me now by the great divine intelligence? And I've started at the end of programs with leaders, actually, usually when we've been through a lot, and I say we're going to sit in meditation together now in a circle, and I'm going to ask, what is it that's being asked of us now as leaders? And then people start speaking. It's like downloads. It's powerful. That's pure receiving.
Mm-hmm.
What's being asked of me now? I don't know, but let me listen. Let me.
And I have that question. I mean, that's not something you're going to answer now, but what's being asked of you now, right? Obviously, that's something you are mindful of in every waking moment, I imagine.
It's definitely a question I sit with, yeah.
Yeah, and you ask some beautiful questions, and then I'll close the book for now. But the leader as healer benefits their teams by asking colleagues, what aspects of our work are you proud of? What is meaningful to you in the work we are doing together? And I love this. What would you want to tell your grandchildren about our work? Beautiful.
Okay, let's do a little journey. So everyone who's listening on audio, if you want to just close your eyes for a moment. And we start in the simplest way, which is that we start to pay attention to our breathing. So as we do this, our thinking goes into the background. We don't stop our thinking, but we choose to pay attention to our breathing, which means we notice the sensations of each in-breath, each out-breath. We just notice. So it's like our body starts to come more online as we pay attention. We notice the constantly changing sensations. We notice more subtle sensations. And then we might do one intentional thing, which is that we see if we can just relax the out-breath. So it's like we drop more into our sitting each time we breathe out. It's like a melting deep in our body. There's a relaxation through the out-breath, right down in our base as we drop into sitting mode. We can start to notice our legs and our feet. We start to have the stronger sense of I'm here. Yes, I'm here. I'm here. I'm embodied. And I can notice sounds as well. And then I can say, how would it be to meet the world while being here in this way? What do I need to do internally to keep my sensing of my body open while I would look at the world, while I would interact with the world? So I have an inner and an outer attention at the same time, and I recognize that's a moment-to-moment choice that I can keep coming back to. So whenever you feel ready, you might just half open your eyes to begin with, so that your inner sensing of yourself and your body remains very strong, till you feel you stabilize that capacity to hold inner and outer at the same time. That becomes a foundational part of presence.
Nicholas, thank you so much. I am so happy that you are who you are, doing what you're doing. Whenever I get your newsletter or see something you post on LinkedIn, I feel, happy, and like my being just receives and expands, and like it's okay to be doing what I'm doing, to have those strengths that I have, those soft skills, and I just feel like you're holding the torch, and I'm right there with you. So so pleased that you have shared your time with us and with me, and I'll just add another thank you for the meeting today, and also want to give you some space before you leave to share how can people find you, what would you like to ask from us to support you in what you're doing.
First of all, thank you. It's been a very rich conversation for me too.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. I have my main website, nicholasjanni.com, and then we have this new platform, which I'm really excited about, which is matrixcoaching.net. It's a very powerful website, which we launched about a month ago. Visually powerful as well.
I've seen it. It's beautiful.
Yeah, so that's the way. Thank you, Julie.
Congratulations. Say hello to Italy for me.
I will.
I wish you the best, and I look forward to connecting again.
Yes,
and
thank
to
you.
many more encounters. So thank you, Nicholas.
Thank
Truly.
you.
Be well.
Thank you.
Take
Bye.
care.